Hey there. Welcome to a deep dive into the career of Mira Murati.
Mira Murati.
Yeah.
If you are even remotely interested in AI, this is the one to listen to.
Yeah, if you want to know, like, who's who in AI,
This is it.
this is the person.
She's been right there, shaping some of the biggest AI projects we've seen recently.
Totally, yeah. And I think what's so interesting about her is where she comes from, because she wasn't born in Silicon Valley with a computer in her crib.
Not at all, no.
Vlorë, Albania, right?
Yeah, no, she had a very different path to the typical, computer science prodigy, although she did love math.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she even competed in the Maths Olympics, which, knowing you,
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
you can appreciate that.
I can appreciate that competitive spirit.
Absolutely, but then she goes on and studies mechanical engineering at Dartmouth, which is all about building things,
Yeah.
tangible things, not just lines of code.
Yeah, so it's interesting that she goes from this, like, love of math
Yeah.
and then to something that's like, I'm going to build something with my hands,
Absolutely, and that's a really key insight, I think, into how she approaches AI.
Okay.
It's that kind of real world, how does it actually work?
Yeah.
How do users experience it? What are the actual engineering challenges?
Right, so not just the coding whiz in the basement, but like,
Yeah.
how does this actually affect people?
Exactly, and you can see that in her career because it's not this straight line.
Yeah, yeah.
She works at Zodiac Aerospace first,
Okay.
then moves on to Tesla,
Whoa. As in Elon Musk's Tesla.
the one and only,
Wow.
working on the Model X. Wow.
As a product manager.
So she's at the forefront of electric vehicles, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so aerospace engineering to electric vehicles.
And then augmented reality,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Leap Motion. She goes and joins this startup.
It's like she's intentionally being like, I'm going to get all these different experiences.
And it's that breadth that makes her so fascinating when she arrives at OpenAI.
Okay, so let's talk about OpenAI a little bit because they're not just your average, tech company building the next social media app.
No, not all.
Like, they have a mission.
They do. Their actual stated mission is to create artificial general intelligence. AI that can, potentially surpass human intelligence, but they always say safely and beneficially. Now, what that means, that's a whole other question. Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is like, how do you even define that,
Right. It's something they've been grappling with since the beginning.
Yeah.
How do you make sure it's done ethically,
Right.
responsibly, and how does that even work with human values?
Yeah, and that's where her role, I think, is so interesting, too, because a lot of places will list her as the CTO,
Right.
but her responsibilities seem to go way beyond that.
Way beyond. She wasn't just interested in, the how do we build this,
Right.
but also, the why.
The why, the what ifs.
Yeah.
All of that.
She was the head of research and development, but also product
Yeah.
and safety.
And we're talking about some big, ChatGPT, DALL-E, Codex.
These are huge.
These are huge. Like, this is not just some small thing.
And things that have had a global impact. Like ChatGPT, that's not just some little chatbot.
Yeah.
That's changing how people write, how they learn.
Totally, yeah.
Even think about creativity.
And DALL-E, too. Just the idea that you can create an image from a text,
Yeah, wild.
like the implications for that in terms of art, and even like who owns the art, all of that.
Absolutely. And she was right there in the middle of it all, figuring this out.
Wow.
Leading these teams while these really complicated issues are being debated.
Wow. It's like she was trying to wrangle this really powerful force, but also be aware of like, okay, what are the implications for this?
Yeah, totally. And then she leaves OpenAI and it's like,
Yeah, and it's not just that she left, but the way she left, it's like, create the time and space to do my own exploration. I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it?
What's she going to explore?
Yeah.
People have a lot of theories, right?
Yeah.
Some people think that, OpenAI was maybe getting a little too commercial and she wasn't happy about that.
Right. Because, in the beginning, it was a nonprofit, and then they shifted to a for-profit, so I could see how that would maybe...
For sure, and especially for someone like her who's so concerned with the ethical implications of this.
Totally. And then you have, Sora coming out. text to video, that's
huge.
That's bonkers.
That changes everything.
Changes everything, and what are the implications for that ethically,
Exactly, and I think that's why everyone's kind of like, why'd she leave? Is it because things were moving too fast? Was it not being thought out enough?
Right.
You also had Ilya Sutskever step down as chief scientist. Oh, right, and Jan Leik left too.
Who is co-leading the super alignment team.
And what is super alignment? for those of us who don't know.
Yeah, for people who haven't been following AI like it's their job, it sounds like. What?
Right. It sounds very sci-fi.
It does. But it's basically, how do we make sure that as AI becomes more and more powerful, that it still is aligned with
With our values.
with human values? Yeah, like how do we bake that in?
Right, because how do you even define that, human values? That's like
Exactly. That's a whole
can of worms.
Exactly.
So they're trying to figure out how to basically build a moral compass into this technology.
It's really complicated.
Yeah, and these are people who are really focused on that. So it's like, if they're leaving, does that mean that they're not focused on it anymore at OpenAI? Or, where does that leave us?
Where does it go from here?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting question, and I think it's something that affects all of us.
Absolutely.
Because these decisions they're making are going to impact all of us.
Totally. But let's talk about her a little bit more. Like, what would you say are some of her biggest contributions, while she was at OpenAI? It's like she built this amazing, powerful thing, and then is like, wait a minute, where are we going with this?
I love that analogy. I think it really speaks to her impact. It's not just about the technology, but the bigger picture.
Totally, yeah. So what would you say, I mean, we talked about her leaving, but what do you think, what are like one or two of the biggest things that she did while she was there?
Yeah, I mean, she was really essential to how OpenAI approached this whole, ethics and safety question.
Okay.
Under her leadership, they created a whole team just focused on this stuff.
Okay.
They actually built it into the product development process.
So it wasn't just like, oh, we'll think about that later.
No, it was like, no, this is part of how we do things.
Yeah.
And that's huge, right? Because if OpenAI, with their ambitions, is prioritizing this, it sends a message to everybody else.
Yeah, totally. Like, if they're doing it, then other companies should be doing it.
Exactly.
It's almost like she was trying to bake it into the DNA of the company. Like, this is how we do things here.
Yeah, and, it's something, we should all be thinking about when we're using these tools.
Yeah, like as users, we have a responsibility.
Exactly. Like when you log on to ChatGPT, ask yourself, what went into building this thing? What guardrails are there?
That's a good point. It's so easy to just get caught up in using the technology.
Oh, absolutely.
That you don't think about those things.
Yeah, it's really easy to just be like, wow, this is amazing. But
Right.
It's important to be like, wait, how is this impacting, me, other people,
Right.
the world, all of it?
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about her is that it seems like she really was thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I think her leaving definitely leaves us with this question of like, okay, where does it go from here?
Yeah. Is this a sign of things to come?
Right.
Or will this become, more and more important?
Right.
I don't know. It's an open question, but I think, her career, her work, it's definitely a call to action.
Totally.
We all have a role to play in this.
We do.
Demanding transparency from these companies, making sure that it's used for good, all of that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to end on. It's like, this is all happening so fast. And I think it's really easy to just sort of be like, oh, we'll just let the adults figure it out. But actually, we're all adults in this.
Yeah, this is it. This is the future.
This is it. We're living it.
Yeah, so we got to, engage with it thoughtfully.
Exactly. Well said. Well, on that note, we're gonna leave it there. But thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. This was great.
Yeah, this was really interesting.
Yeah, always a pleasure. And we'll see you next time.